Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another modelling video. Today we're doing another segment of honing your airbrush skills. Being a popular series, it's an ongoing development of my ability to airbrush and the use of this fairly complex yet simple tool. I had a few ideas. I've been just given a few tips about nozzle maintenance and nozzle maintenance on more expensive models. This is the DH103 model by Sparmax. It's a very good airbrush, and you can buy the DH103 model from Mr. Hobby and Delta, as well as cheaper Chinese knockoffs. Now, going back, when you're choosing an airbrush, I prefer this one as it's very simple to put together, performs the same as all other airbrushes, and most importantly, when you're shopping for an airbrush, its parts are very easy to come by on eBay and very cheap. Now, the first thing you always do when you buy a new airbrush, and I know I am going back to basics, but sometimes in sports teams, professional players do go to basics, and this airbrush hasn't been performing very well the last few sprays, but I have been whipping it very hard. First thing you should always do when you're learning your new airbrush is how to pull it apart and put it back together quite fluently in case something goes wrong. Now, if you are really new, you should probably practice a few times, and I've got some tight joints. Now, I'm only human, and sometimes I do the wrong thing. I've allowed paint to seep past the needle. I haven't been thoroughly maintaining it too well, and it's stiffened some of the joints and threads, which at the point of grip, use small pliers to undo, and the rest of your fingers or finger strength to dismantle. Interestingly, these two components, which actually permanently sat like this with a pin, is just broken, so that's not too cool. The components are known as a shaft and tongue. In previous models, the tongue is actually separated and sits in the opening where the trigger is able to pull back for paint and down for air. So technically, no problems, still works. Been having issues spraying microfiller primer using the end of the needle. I've dug out this debris which is clogging the nozzle. Now this is absolutely disgusting. We've got a mixture of paint and primer caked all over the place. Some of the pieces are actually quite fresh, and I'd assume if we were to swab the inside of the back here, we are going to probably pick up some paint and leftover lubricant. I had the lubricant last time for replacing the seals. Here is a really cool trick. When you're using a more expensive airbrush, locating nozzles is quite expensive. Your needle can get stuck in it. It can get a bit of clog in there that it's really hard to clean out, and it's far too tiny. If you actually try to force the needle in it, it's most likely going to split or tear, and being around $60 to $80 per nozzle, that's not too cool. Now, my nozzle's only about a few dollars, so I don't really care too much, but if you're using something like a Pache or Iwata, you want to care about your nozzle, and eventually there's going to be crap building up in there where the needle cannot pass efficiently. You're blunting the end of your needle, causing all sorts of trouble, and you can't buy cheaper nozzles and put them in your airbrush. A friend of mine done that recently, and it just ruins the thread and your needle. So you're wondering why I'm holding to me extra thin cement. I was taught this trick by a veteran modeler recently, that if right down the hole on the back end, you're able to put some cement in there and drag out all sorts of gunk. Do this before and after cleaning your airbrush, and apparently it extends your life of your nozzle by many years, not just a few months to a single year. So the hint is at the very back of the nozzle, you get some cement on your brush, dig it in there, pull it out, hopefully it takes some crud with it. We're going to put it for a soak in the ultrasonic cleaner with lacquer thinner as well as the rest of the airbrush. Afterwards we're going to give it a little more cement treatment, and at the very end actually flush a little bit of cement through your airbrush followed by lacquer thinner. Don't know what it does, but apparently, according to a few veterans, it's very good airbrush maintenance. Now, I've done this before I made this video. I got one of my clogged nozzles I was prepared to throw out. I had a bit of tissue lodged in there and forced and compacted in tightly from the needle. It just absolutely lifted out perfectly with the extra thin cement, and I'd imagine if you let it vibrate a bit in the ultrasonic cleaner and did it again, the parts would just come out so much more easier. Now I've got all the components in the ultrasonic cleaner. Of course, you never put your needle in there, as a reminder. I'm going to give the needle a bit of a clean with this fresh thinner. And I can't recommend enough, even though these items are about $30–40, they're definitely an amazing investment. I'm going to turn it on. You're going to see a cloud of shit just develop in the thinner. I'll zoom in for that privilege. I've just recently experimented, absolutely off topic, while cleaning some resin bits. I couldn't scrub some finer detail on a figurative kit with the sponge or the toothbrush. So I put some detergent water and a few resin pieces in there. It gets quite warm in there. Ultrasonic cleaners are quite awesome for cleaning resin. So when you're doing your scrubbing, you let it soak for a bit in the ultrasonic cleaner, you let it run, and it just helps vibrate the release agent off, as well as other surface gunk. So definitely worth the purchase. Absolutely nasty, isn't it? So I'm going to let that soak for an hour or so and vibrate for about half an hour, and we're going to give it a bit of a polish, a lube, and spray some lines. As we're covering basics on a compressor, airbrushing maintenance, run your hose as always along the floor, close the tap or hold your lead like this so air can't pass. Run the compressor until the tank is full and blast any water out of this hose. As it's laying flat on the floor, it's just going to blast it out like a shotgun. And with your water trap, again, fill up your tank. When it's full, pull the little trigger back here, like so. But when it's absolutely full, it's going to also blast the water out of your trap, and no water is going to mix in your paint, especially since we're going to be doing some lines with lacquer. And if you have a tank, you may want to open the bottom of it and drain any water that's been captured in there as well. Now, as time goes on and your compressor ages, it's going to rust inside the air tank, unless you're literally extremely vigilant and you're cleaning the water out daily, which I don't. I'm a bit lazy. And unfortunately, with the advice I gave of opening the bottom and releasing the water, I've threaded the nut and the bolt will not come out. So I removed the water trap at the front and tipped all the water out. Now this is the colour and consistency. This is rust water. The inside of my compressor is decaying, and one day either the motor is going to blow out or sufficient air leak's going to occur that I can't patch it up and will not get the PSI out of it. So if you plan on retiring from the hobby, before you do so, put your compressor in a way where it's not going to die during your retirement and drain all water out, and just really regularly take it out, because if your tank is constantly full of water, that's less storage capacity for air and you won't run your compressor as long. So with this disgusting shit out of it, make sure you flush out your tank.
Yes, unfortunately.
Now for a little info on caring for an aging airbrush. I've had this for close to 10 years. This is the first airbrush I've used, and it's the nicest airbrush I've ever owned before Sparmax started going in a different tangent that I didn't like the internals of too much. First, you're going to notice the electroplating starting to lift. The paint's going to stick in the cup and the internals a lot easier. Apparently it's made of brass. There's not much that you can do at this point but retire it. The internal washers, which I've mentioned in the previous video, are completely dead. To extend its life, I lubricate and put petroleum jelly on the inside to hold the paint in the cup. But replacing the washers is also an option. I don't see too much of a point, as the lacquer will eat at it unless you're exclusively an acrylic airbrusher. I'm also having a little trouble with the input air solenoid. It's permanently stuck open. Just before I get into that, I'm painting some lines with lacquer paint, thinned 50-50 at 20 psi. A little harder, but it's of quite a thinned consistency, so I'm able to move a bit faster. Now the solenoid, for some reason it is absolutely jammed open. It was okay previously. I'm not too sure if something's got stuck, or I'm going to pull it apart and have a rebuild. I've got two cheaper Chinese DH103s on standby, and I just pinched the solenoid directly off that. I don't think I've cleaned it yet, so it's a tad stiff, but it's doing the trick. It's leaving a tiny bit of mist at the start and end of some of these lines, but I figure out how to control it better. Once I go on the second sheet of paper, I'm doing some fairly neat, non-splattery lines. The needle's also a tad old. Forgot to neaten up the tip of it. I'll do it later, and by the next session the needle will be replaced. I will be doing some pre-shading work, though the lines and the detail I'm getting at from this test and line drawing exercise is far good enough. Back to the model of the airbrush. Now, I know a lot of people advocate using a very expensive and fine brand of airbrush for their hobby. Now, with what we do on our model kits, especially if we're not shading, we're only using 5% of the potential of this tool and the ability to atomize paint and air, especially when you're using a cheaper or basic compressor. Going from a beginner and going through all the mistakes, trials, and occasionally lazing about maintenance, as too worried about parts, these exact same mistakes that I've made over the years on an Iwata will be very costly. To the reason why I'm always going to be a big fan of the DH103 series, and I'm always going to recommend it as your absolute workhorse for the hobby. For you find the details, and I do admit to having a few other upmarket airbrushes, they're perfect, but you just have to be absolutely vigilant with the maintenance, and sometimes you can get a bit lazy. Sometimes you're using primers or undesirable paints, but a workhorse that is your airbrush should be a very reliable model, and I'm in love with this particular pattern of airbrush, as whatever I throw at it, it always comes back strong. But in the end, with all of this advice, I am far from an airbrush expert. These are things that I've learnt from tutorials and picked up myself and traded with other people. And this is only a series about my personal development in airbrushing and getting my hands on it every week to improve and learn more about the tool. This is a practical activity. Everyone at home is invited to do the same and also report back. I'll take an interest. The more contribution we have and the more information we're all trading around, the more that we're learning. And going into the results, the first sheet I did was a bit shaky and a bit fuzzy here and there, but again, as I've adjusted with the new conditions after the maintenance, the lines on the other side, even though a tad fat, were fairly neat. Later on, even though I've got a lot of projects on hand, I will get back to trying to achieve a really fine pencil-like line. But I can say with absolute certain, starting this series probably about a year ago, I'm not too sure, I've roughly made a video once every couple of months, there's definitely a noticeable improvement in my work, understanding and maintenance of the airbrush. This ritual I'm going through of flushing the compressors, doing this certain style of cleaning with the ultrasonic cleaning, lubricating the airbrush has been producing decent results, and after every time the airbrush is lubricated, it's ever so smooth and easy to work. It's not metal on metal, and you'll know with automotive and machines in the real world, when they're rubbing pistons and metal against each other, they're always lubricated, so I can't see why the rule should not apply to airbrushes, and something that I'll definitely recommend everyone having a go at. I'll be very interested to note and report back how long this nozzle will last with the new nozzle maintenance technique regarding the extra thin cements. This could be very good news for those individuals that use more upmarket airbrush and airbrush parts as your main workhorse. I'll definitely report that in future videos. All set aside, very successful outcomes with this month's video. It is a bit of a pain that the solenoid is giving me problems. Next time we'll get that resolved, and we'll probably do a little more shading on an individual piece like we did last time. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, if you guys got any problems or any suggestions to try out in this video, please let me know and we'll definitely explore it. Until next time.